Happy Friday, everyone. We have made it almost to the end of the week and the month that will never end. I am coming on for a rare second part edition of my Not a Podcast this week to talk really quickly about neurodivergence and working as an ADHD person. Earlier this week, I posted about how I dropped from a meeting early and I didn't lie about it. And I normally would be like, oh, I need to jump on another call, or oh, somebody's at the door. And the truth of the matter was I have ADHD and there are real symptoms of that neurodivergence that have to be managed around. And so just kind of sharing a little bit more behind the scenes about this because I had a fascinating conversation with my psychiatrist about this today. One of the symptoms that I really struggle with, probably the worst symptom that I have, is I have a really hard time getting started on tasks. There is an inertia to get me going on a task that feels impossible to overcome, even when I know it's a 2-minute task. An example of that this week is scheduling my dog's daycare. I have to send my cattle dog to daycare because she's crazy. And I can do it online in about 30 seconds, or I can call them and do it in about a minute. Needed to do it, put it on my to-do list on Monday, rolled it to Tuesday. I wanted her to go to daycare on Wednesday, didn't get it done by Wednesday. And I finally called yesterday to get her into daycare today. That sounds like an insane thing. That anecdote is insane. There is a person inside of me that's like, Sarah, it took 30 seconds. Why? It took you longer to write the task on your to-do list every day than it did for you to just complete the task. This is insanity. And there's a story in my head that maybe I just don't care enough, or maybe I'm lazy, or there is something wrong with me that I do shit like that. And I was talking to my psychiatrist today. I had a check-in on my meds, and we were talking about the issues that I'm still experiencing with overcoming getting started on tasks. And it's particularly bad in the afternoons because the way that my work schedule looks is I wake up in the morning, I do daycare drop off, I go to the gym, I come back, I sit down with my to-do list. It's definitely like skills and pills. I have like a very strong behavioral routine to help me get moving on my tasks. And so my meds are acting well. My habits are going. Most of my team is not on the East Coast, so I don't have calls to distract me and I can actually work. But as soon as calls happen, as soon as I am pulled out of focus mode, it is impossible to get me back into it. Maybe not always impossible, but it requires an extreme amount of will to get me back into my to-do list after a call. And so what that means is if I start having calls at 11, even if they wrap at 2, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., it is a free-for-all in my brain. And maybe I'm going to get stuff done that's on my to-do list, but I'm probably actually going to spend most of my time triaging things, moving things through Slack, like doing the little I can't focus activities. And that's not good. It's not efficient. And in an ideal world, I would spend my entire morning doing focus tasks, and I would only take meetings from like 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. But that's not how it works in the real world. So I have to ride the waves of my energy and my meds. And that just is ADHD, right? That is what happens. So like we're talking about my meds, right? I'm on, full disclosure, I'm on an extended release medication. And before I was on extended release, I was on instant release. I would take it twice a day. This is great because when you take instant release, it's like a big burst of focus and then a taper down, and then a big burst of focus and a taper down. And that actually works well because I could control it around like kind of this mid-afternoon meetings. And tangent, look at my ADHD in action. Your meds and managing your neurodivergence is not just meant to make you more productive at work. I want to say that again. Managing your neurodivergence isn't important just to make you more productive at work. My neurodivergence affects my ability as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, as a partner. It affects all aspects of my life. So while I'm talking today and while I think about it a lot in the context of productivity at work, I also manage my medication and my neurodivergence in my personal life too. And I think that that's a dialogue that we don't necessarily have and may not be appropriate for LinkedIn, but that's important. I want you to hear that. So anyways, the instant release stuff, I can manage it around my meetings. Moving to extended release helps with the peaks and valleys. And to be honest, these meds are abused and prescribers prefer to give extended release because they're not as hot of a commodity. So we were talking through how I'm really struggling with getting tasks started in the afternoon, and like it's getting on top of me, like what I talked about in my post earlier this week. And we were talking about the different ways that we could adjust my meds. Would I want to switch back to like totally to just the instant release? Do I want to do a higher dose of extended release? Do I want to do extended release with like an instant release kicker at the end of the day as needed? And originally I thought that my psych was saying that I should just do instant release, 2 bumps of it. And I was like, I mean, that kind of makes sense because there are some days where I just have meetings all afternoon. And so on those days, I wouldn't need to take my meds because that's not about self-starting on tasks. That's just rolling through meetings. And she stopped me and she said, there's just this really interesting thing with people who are new into the ADHD space where they're trying to minimize how much they use their medicine because there's such a deep-seated narrative that I should be able to do these tasks. She was telling me a story about one of her other patients who has an entry-level job. It's like one of her first real jobs out of college. She was looking at not taking her meds in the afternoon because she was like, in the afternoon, all I have to do is make phone calls. I'm making phone calls to confirm addresses, and I don't think I should need meds to do that. And my doctor was like, sure, you would think logically you don't need meds to do that. But when you have ADHD, you just won't. And then when things get on top of you, when you don't do those things, that compounds the internal dialogue of, I must be lazy. I must not care. Our first thought, people who are diagnosed with ADHD late in life, isn't I have a neurodivergence that makes it difficult for me to do that. It's I have a character flaw that I need to overcome. And I shouldn't have to use medication to overcome my character flaw. And to hear my doctor say that, like, I just felt so seen because I'm not a person who's gentle with myself. I have reached the level of success that I have reached because I work my ass off. And I have a standard for myself that is almost unreachable. And so being gentle with myself does not feel natural. And so my story in my head is 100%, I really don't need to take these meds. My goal is to take as few meds as possible. And for my doctor to explain to me like, hey, that's an internal narrative that is not aligned with the reality of your brain chemistry and the symptoms of the neurodivergence that you have had for your whole life. Like, what you're telling me is that I'm not a lazy, unorganized, uncaring person, that I am actually a person with neurodivergence who needs accommodations. Not only do I need accommodations, I deserve them. I deserve accommodations to do my best work in a way that feels good. And so I guess the point of me sharing this with you all is to just to give you that news too. If you have a neurodivergence, if you require accommodations for whatever it is you're dealing with to be successful at work, you deserve those things. You're not a burden. You're not wrong. You're a person. You're a human. And you deserve to take up space. This feels cringy AF to post on LinkedIn, but guys, when are y'all gonna kick me off the internet? Have a great weekend.